All right. I don't quite know where this video might end up because sadly my last video, as you all know, twice was blocked because History Channel really loves their story of the Great Lakes and doesn't want to share on my platform without consent. Okay. However, I only was using that History Channel video for comedic relief because the story, and as you'll see in a moment, the story is so silly. It just doesn't make sense. So, as I said in the first part 1 for this Jesus map, as Jane's Journey calls it, this is completely different, obviously, than what we're shown today. I read a little bit about Sanson and this man here. His name was, oh, is this a different copy? Helio, or, okay, this is different. This is a different map. It doesn't have the name on it, but it's in the title of part 1. I'm not French, and I don't know Greek or Latin or whatever, so. Anyways, this map, however many people have added to it or arranged it, it was said to be wrong. Now, 2 things. They don't know that, and I still am questioning why or how they got this aerial view of these maps, especially with so much detail. Okay? Now, Jane's Journey, I will link a couple videos of hers on the bottom here because she tackles the west where she is, southwest, and I'm going to tackle the Great Lakes, which are null and void right here. There's Lake Superior. So I live near Chicago. I've been to Lake Michigan many times, which right there, I have no idea. There's Huron, it says, Erie. Okay. So I'll link her 2 videos. She also did another fascinating video. And by the way, I had printed off this map for myself and the map of, I always forget the names, I'm so sorry. Someone's going to have to correct me. The map of the North Pole Islands. Okay. She did a fascinating video on that. And so she turned this map upside down to kind of line it up with the Arctic. It was really interesting. And I did it with my 2 print out maps. And it was really interesting because I kind of overlaid this Californian island with where on that map it is labeled California. So very interesting. She mentions the big shift out here, and especially with the Rio Grande, and I certainly see a big shift here. The Mississippi, as this map shows, 1650, looks like it's here. In the other one, the Mississippi is going east to west. So really different. We're going to kind of stay with what I was going to stay with in my original video, but also I have a little bit more that I had found. So basically, here's the mainstream normie, I love that term, normie narrative. that all of this was iced over, whatever, 10,000 years ago. Okay? All this. Now, obviously, all these maps debunk that. I think. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Now, they also show how we see the Great Lakes today like this, that they really haven't changed shape. So this map is, I believe, 1811. Oh, I could be wrong. Sorry for the mix-up. Nope, it said 1811. So let's look at our map. So let's go back to the original. Sorry for the flipping around. Okay. So the mainstream, like I said this was all ice, and obviously once the ice shifted or melted or whatever, then it formed the lakes. But this map debunks that. It looks like here, now I do have to say they said that the Great Lakes used to be one lake. So they actually gave a little hint of a clue of truth there. So this looks like it was one lake. Lake Superior. So specifically, it looks like in these travels, these cartographers went all here. And obviously, for whatever reason, didn't here. And thank you to Jane, because she has kept me going. As she said, I kept her going on this map. She has really kept me going on this map. You could study this map forever. Especially all of these different places. Settlements. Okay. So, one huge lake, which, okay, they give us that truth. And then it talks about how it funnels out to the Atlantic. Okay, yada, yada, yada. They always talk about the glaciers. They always talk about 10,000 years ago. They don't talk about any of this. And I think at some point, these maps were debunked. So you see Florida is looking very different. It's more elongated. So let's go to about 100 years later. 1750 from 1650. All right, all of a sudden they're there. So these lakes did not form and separate 10,000 years ago in the Ice Age. They separated between 1650 and 1750. Which, as we all know, those times were interesting for mysteries we don't understand. So here they're clearly marked out by 1750, Lake Superior. I can't read that, I'm sorry. Lake Erie, Huron, Ontario. I don't think that says Michigan. Yes, it does. It says Loch, Michigan. Okay. And then we see the Mississippi more defined, the Rio Grande more defined. Florida's looking more boxy, as I mentioned. I think I mentioned in the first one. This is very interesting how Florida has changed. And obviously, 1750, now what are they? They're not showing on this map the West Coast. So are they working on filling in the island of California there? I don't know. Okay. So within 100 years, I'm wondering if these lakes were, or this lake was somehow funneled. Which brings me to another point of these salt mines. Now I could be wrong. This might not be, might not be what I want. 1 second, bear with me. This uploaded after I had already started. It was very slow, so 1 second. There are about 1,700 feet below Lake Erie. It's the largest salt mine. So 1 second. Let's do some real, oops, my computer's so slow it doesn't even realize what I'm typing. Excuse me while these little, I think I can, my computer's not too slow. Let's wait for this to load. Okay, so what I heard in some other videos on YouTube was these filled with salt. Some of them do, just like Erie, from the ocean. But I'm thinking now that these lakes were formed and carved from the mining. And there's kind of some hints of that. I know other people have looked into that the mining is much more rigorous than we think, like the mining of what's under the volcanoes. Speaking of things going on in the world right now. Not just in Lake Erie here. I'm sorry, my computer is so slow. So the traditional mainstream thought is the Ice Age impacted all of that. And then, of course, another mystery I guess we'd have to look into, or someone else can, I really don't have the time to look into, is the funneling out of the water, dumping into Niagara Falls and then out to the ocean. And we all know Niagara Falls is not what they say. So I'm just wondering if this is the work of those who like to control things and they just write their own history for what they want and for their gain, you know, the salt mines and any mining and any tearing up of the earth they can do. So here's this. Major locations. Rock salt is mined from 7 locations in the Great Lakes region, thanks to the vein of salt more than 1,000 feet below the surface. So it's about, I think it's about 1,700 feet. It might even be 1,750 feet. Ahem. Okay. So it's basically all of this. I think now that I'm looking at more things that they have really carved out the lakes. Which, why would they hide that? Except to promote evolution. And these maps were not, excuse me, these maps were long before Darwinian theory came about. So they've completely dismissed the maps of the past. So they must have, within those 100 years, really channeled out what they wanted, probably for the industry here, what they wanted with these salt mines. For whatever reason. Let's read a little bit. My computer will work with me. You can look this up yourself too. industrialscenery.blogspot.com. It's about the world's largest salt mine under the lake. Oh my goodness. This is why I have a hard time with this computer making videos, so I'm so sorry. Please be patient. And if you're not patient, you can move on. I'm sure there's other more interesting videos. Okay. It's just someone's experience. Okay. Excuse me while I try to scroll. I want to see this diagram here. Okay, So here's Lake Erie, the lake shore, 45 feet of water, and then bedrock. And then you get down, here's the salt mine. That's interesting. So quite a bit of salt down there, and I cannot, because I do not know. Here's this YouTube video about it if you'd like to see it. So my next point is, okay, these rock formations, which I knew they were there. I've never been to these places. I guess I should go now. Lots of interesting rock formations, and as all of us who are in the truther communities know, these possibly and probably are not just rocks being washed away. Again, mainstream will say, oh, this was from the ice and the water flowing made way for these rock structures and these arches. So this looks a lot like what you'd find in Utah and different things. Now, I am an untrained eye. I would like to call out to any of the better trained eyes, like UAP or Campbell from Autodidactic, Wise Up. He probably doesn't even know about my channel. He's so great at this stuff. So they would probably be able to have a better input about this. So let's just go in and look at it for yourself and for ourselves. I mean, I guess the water could have washed this away, but as we know, everything else in our history is bunk, so I'm assuming this is too. Let's not forget that overtaking of land is what the controllers like to do and make their story, his story, history. I was going to say this too. Notice the name, Jane. I'm asking you. Isn't this interesting? Apostle Island rock formation. Okay, here's my next theory, and some of you may not agree with me, and that's okay. I don't even agree with myself yet. I don't know for certain. But I have been looking into a little bit, not as much as I maybe did last year, but is North and South America the biblical lands? So I've heard some YouTubers mention, and they're from Canada, there's Land of Abraham up here or something like that, Fields of Abraham in Canada here. As we all know, the Mississippi has many similarities to the Nile and how it's described. All of the towns around the Mississippi match the Egyptian cities that are specified in history. And then we have, as Jane had mentioned, not in this particular depiction of this map, but in the other one she uses the Jesus map, and the one I printed out, it says the Terra de Jesus, I believe. Let me go check. Let me get my map right here. Of course it's cut off. Well, she mentions it in her video. Sorry, Jane. Go watch Jane's video about that. Basically, the land of Jesus, the sea of Jesus is healing. The land of Jesus is healing. And as I said, wouldn't these men know that the scripture? I think better than, I mean, why would they name it that? And then plus, we have this Apostles Rock. And I'm not even going to look up why it's named Apostle Rock Formation, because it's probably fake anyway, the story behind it, meaning someone named it that because they were inspired by something else or something. Again, I'm so sorry for my slow computer. Battleship Rocks. Again, are they giving us a clue in the name, Battleship? I don't know. As I said, I have an untrained eye, but now I can look at these as something different than just eroded rock formations. The mainstream will say how much higher the lakes were. So I would say that's true. I would think that this one lake, maybe it was all Lake Superior, was higher than they are now. And that's what they say comes, that's where these arches and things were formed, because the water level was higher. Way back 10,000 years ago or whatever. I don't know, what is this? It could be natural, I just don't know. It's beautiful. I should really try to get out there. Indian drum. Really beautiful. So, I guess I'll have to stop there. I'll show you one other map. I showed you 1750. Let's look at 18. Oh, this is 1750. This is the 1811 one. This one we didn't get so much. Excuse me while I try to work with my computer. Okay, 1811, of course. So I misspoke. I wasn't sure if the lakes had changed at this time or before, so I've clarified that it was between 1650 and 1750. So obviously here the colonies and the United States is taken shape the way they wanted to. States established, the Mississippi. And obviously here Lake Michigan, all separated now. So instead of Lake Superior and it being taken up, this is kind of carved out now. This way. So I think that's all I have. I do have to say also under the Great Lakes there are many fossilized sea creatures, coral, different things that probably were washed there from the flood or another reset from Yah himself or others. Obviously, they have reset America quite physically the way they wanted. That's all I have to say. If you have anything to add, please do. It's really, really fascinating. I wouldn't even be able to touch on all of these different settlements and towns and cities and people groups and all these different things. Just fascinating. Where do we live? Do we live in the biblical lands? Do we live in Egypt, specifically if you are in the U.S.? Was this Abraham's country, Canaan, the promised land? Or is this Israel? Is this, as Jane said, this was actually a Great Britain settlement. Huge landmass where we were huge. The Arctic. And as Jane, you'll see mentioned in her video, this whole area seems to have been shifted, which I would agree with. Something is shifted. So what do you think? That's all I have. I hope it met your expectations. I just almost gave up on this video because after 2 times of being blocked, it just it's a hassle, you know. They probably want it that way. So blessings. Thanks for listening and joining me.